I am Daniel Ligis, and welcome to Book 101 Review. Book 101 is about the books that I've read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest, no other than Miss Felicity Harley.
Thank you very much, Daniel. Nice to be here.
Welcome to Book 101, Miss Felicity, and can you please introduce yourself?
Yes, I'd love to do that. I was born in England, and I grew up in Nigeria in England. I served in the Foreign Office, and then I was recruited to go to Iran. I wrote my first novel there. After that, I left in my early 20s and came to the US to start an alternative newspaper in Santa Barbara, and there I wrote my second novel. I did get an offer to publish that, but I decided I didn't want to be a professional writer or novelist. After I'd attended Berkeley, where I researched right and left brain development and started something called the Children's Creative Project, which really was started to try and demonstrate the importance of developing creativity in children. Then I moved to Connecticut, where I had a long career as a nonprofit administrator. And during that time, I served on the board of Curbstone, which is a small, prestigious, I think, indie press, for over 20 years, where I continued to write poetry and published it. I retired 10 years ago, and I began this 5-book science fiction series, which I finished last year. I received an offer to get it published in January by a British publisher. Basically, I live in Connecticut. I also live in the Caribbean for 2.5 months a year in a small island where my mother was born, called Bequia in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. So I'm also a Vincentian. And I have 2 daughters, and I have 4 grandchildren, and I'm a very active grandmother.
Miss Felicity, thank you so much for sharing your talents to the world. And I
Thank you.
hope more books to come.
Well, hopefully, yes.
So, can you give our listener a brief overview of your book, The Burning Years?
Yes, I'd be happy to. I wanted very much to write this book and this series because let's say I was impelled to write it because I really saw climate change as an existential threat to us. And so I thought I would very much like to write a book about climate change. And I also became very interested in science and different aspects of science, physics, biology, genetics. And I wanted to take on the challenge of integrating the sciences into a novel that was interesting and not very pedantic and not very sort of heavy on explaining rather than showing. So that's really what inspired me to write the series. The Burning Years is the first in it, and it's very much focused on climate change, how we live. Probably I've brought a little bit forward. I would say we're going to probably be forced to live underground because the surface of the earth is so burnt that we have to take shelter under there. But my society is a high tech, and we are successful in living in that way under domes and underground because we have the science and technology to do that. And I was also interested in, society. How do you create societies going forward, and how would they evolve? So in the first book, my characters are living. Some are living in independent communities that have been started by tech brothers like Musk and people like that who have the money and who are already sort of building these underground bunkers that are huge. There's one being built now by Zuckerberg on Hawaii. It's a huge underground settlement, really. And then, so I contrasted those with ones that the government ran that were much more controlled, restricted. People in them are genetically engineered so that they can fulfill what's required of them to keep the society, the civilization going. So yes, I was interested in a lot of things, but climate change was for this book was the driver.
Yes. Again, Miss Felicity, thank you for your talents and sharing to the world. What was the writing process like for these The Burning Years?
Well, the writing process was interesting because I had to do a lot of research because I am what's called a hard science writer. So the science I use is, while some of it's hypothetical, mathematically it can be proved. We just haven't figured out how to do what we think we can do mathematically in the real world. So I did a lot of research into quantum physics, for instance, because I wanted to understand certain theories that we might be able to use in the future. I did a lot of research into genetics, bioengineering, chemical DNA, a lot of things, sort of rather intense subjects. I'm a social scientist, so really all I had studied was biology and psychology. But so that was the process. It was very heavily researched, and then I had to decide what will the plot be, how will my characters be, who are they going to be, and how will they act within the context of the plot. So while my books were sort of sketched out, the plot was sort of kind of sketched out for The Burning Years, it did change because when I write, my characters speak to me. And so my characters would say, no, we're not doing that. So, so I would change it. And so it was a very interesting process for me and very enlightening. And I had to learn a lot. I had a tremendous editor. So, point of view, I would change point of view in the middle of a paragraph, or no, not a paragraph, in the middle of a chapter. Can't do that really unless you're a really good writer. And had to learn not to be too boring, not to talk too much about, because I was very excited about, well, this is how you do it. This is how the science is done. And no, people, how do you feel about that? What does it smell like? What does it taste like? So I had a wonderful editor, and, or he'd say, no, you need to rewrite that. That's not going to work. So it was great.
Yes. So, Miss Felicity, how did you come up with the title of The Burning Years?
Well, I came out with that title because I do believe we're getting hotter and hotter on the surface. It's proven that we are. It's recently I read that by 2060 all the ice will have melted in the Arctic and the Antarctic, and perhaps not in the Antarctic, but in the Arctic. And so I thought, yes, we're just hotter and hotter. I enjoy reading other authors. Kim Stanley Robinson wrote a wonderful book called The Ministry of the Future. It's a little bit, he's very technical in how he explains how we could get out of the effects of climate change. But the beginning is, how really millions of people die in India because of a heat wave. And then it moves on from there to explain how hot. So I chose it because I feel the carbon monoxide, that we're pumping into the atmosphere is creating this shield that doesn't allow heat to escape. And that's really what's making the Earth, our Earth, so very hot and so unpredictable. So that's how I chose the title.
Yes, and good job for that. Well done, Miss Felicity. So
Thank you.
you're welcome. Could you describe the main characters or themes in your book, The Burning?
Yes. In this particular book, the main characters are a group of young scientists, very diverse. They're all very diverse. They're very interested in science, um, and they are involved in developing. One of my main characters developed the woman you see on the cover, who is a bioengineered human being, and she is one of the main characters. She runs throughout the entire series because she is bioengineered. So her limbs are bioengineered. Her brain is hooked into what we call the internet now, but it's just the wealth of human knowledge. She can literally hook into anything, and she is extremely strong and flexible. She is one of my main characters. I have a East Indian character who is also developed like her, called Rajiv, who is a tremendous scientist, and they run away from the main city where there are it's a lot of plutocrats are controlling. It's a very controlled environment, and they want to use these two human beings as weapons, and they don't want to be used as weapons. So they run away, and one of the scientists who is part of the family that will run through this entire series, it's a family of female scientists, and I call them Sophia because of the word means female wisdom in the Gnostic Bibles. So she is Sophia, and she dismantles the geoengineering the systems that the government has been using to geoengineer the weather to try and bring back the surface of the earth, because she does not believe that that is the way to do it, that the earth is a living, breathing thing. It's a Gaia, it's a living, breathing thing. So she wants the earth to recover on its own. They escape together and they have adventures, and they go to an independent underground community, and from there they start their adventures, and we learn how they live, and we meet a Native American character who has started another Hototo, who started another community in Colorado. And so it's really, these characters take you through how they're feeling about how they're going to live in the future as human beings on a surface that's really been scorched.
Interesting, Miss Felicity. Did you draw any personal experiences when crafting the burning years?
Sorry, did I?
Did you draw from any personal experiences when
Ah,
crafting the burning years?
did I draw from personal experience? Not, I don't think I did draw from personal experience, because the technology and science that is used in the book is very far advanced. And I do have a spaceship, an ark, that goes off into to Alpha Centauri, Proxima b. It's one of the nearest stars, and I do use a technology called nuclear fusion that we are trying to develop, because we can't really go very far, because we can't carry the fuel. We don't have the technology to carry the fuel. So they go very far out, and they, on the way, Mars has been colonized. So they and para-terraformed, and they stop off on Mars, and so to go back to the experience, because it's futuristic, I haven't had that experience myself. I think there are people who are experiencing living in very repressive societies. I've never lived in one. When I went to Iran, it wasn't like that. It is like that now. And yeah, so yes, I did a lot of that that kind of thing. So, but nothing personal really. The characters, of course, that I create, I do base them on various people and various aspects of myself, you know. So, but yes, I hope that answered the question.
Yes, indeed, Miss Felicity. But before we go, and I want to shout out my top five countries listening to me right now this week. So in Suriname, I got number 7 on the Apple charts, 11 in Saint Kitts Nevis in books, and of course 21 in arts in Suriname, number 32 in Saint Kitts and Nevis in arts, and number 100 in Paraguay. Thank you so much for supporting this podcast, because this podcast is created to empower writers, authors all over the world, like Miss Felicity Harley. So, were there any particular authors or books influence your writing style for these burning years?
For the burning years. And also, I'd love to say thank you to you for doing this. It's wonderful. And St. Kitts and Nevis is just up the street from the St. Vincent and the Grenadines. So a shout out to St. Kitts and Nevis, a fellow, they're not Vincies, we call ourselves Vincies, but they are Caribbean guys, just like us, and guys and girls. So a shout out to them. So yes, authors. One of the main authors for me when I first started writing novels was Joan Didion. I really loved her style of writing. So my first 2 books, I really looked at her and thought about her. And I also, for content, enjoyed Doris Lessing. But then as I looked at science fiction, I moved on to people like, of course, the grandfather, Isaac Asimov, because he's a hard science fiction writer, Arthur Clarke, Robert Heinemann. I also love other writers like Octavia Butler. They're not hard science, but they're tremendous science fiction. And Ursula Le Guin, a really philosophical approach to science fiction. So I really enjoyed her books very much. And, you know, in the modern world, I really like Kim Stanley Robinson. He's a fellow writer and an excellent science fiction writer. And I like Blake Crouch very much. So yeah, those people I like and have read extensively.
Yes. So, what do you hope readers would take away from the burning years after they finish reading it?
Well, what I hope they take away is, I hope they take away a strong desire to understand the existential crisis of climate change, that it is real, that it is a very hard subject to understand, because when you are dealing with the here and now, and you're dealing with what I call Maslow's pyramid, you're dealing with the bottom layer. You have to go to work like my daughters do. You have to put food on the table, a roof over the head, and all those things. It is very hard to think further out and think, well, yes, this is going to happen. It is, however, such an important issue that I feel it's the one issue people should be thinking about going further out. And unfortunately, I would still say to people, please do what you can, recycle, get forms of energy that are clean. But I would say that it's a political decision. So please vote for people who are aware of climate change and who really want to do something about it. It's very, very important. And though the steps may be small and incremental, anything we can do to mitigate it, it's happening. So it's not like we're going to stop it. It's not like we're going to keep below 1.5. That's impossible. We're definitely going to go to 2 and hopefully not 3 degrees. But we must continue to have hope, and we must continue to do those things that we can to make changes. So that is one of the main messages. And then the other message I think I'd like people to think about is, what kind of society, civilization, what kind of government do we really want? Do we want a government that's made up of plutocrats and very rich people, the 1%, really a corporatocracy, a 1%er kind of government? Or do we want something that's different? And I show different forms of societies, small in my book. So I do want people to think about that. I mean, very carefully. And as the book goes on, there are a lot more issues that I present to people, such as in the next book, which will be published next year, because I've written them already and I have a publisher. I talk about, let's look at different kinds of energy and how we really work scientifically towards that kind of energy. It's called 0 point energy. We have to look at anti-gravity technology. It will help us greatly. So yes, but for this book, it's more, how do we want to live? And we must look at climate change, even though it doesn't seem to be important, and we must make the right decisions.
Yes, people, right decision, and support those politicians protecting our Mother Earth, because these
Yes.
are generations to come. So, Miss Felicity, how important was research in creating the world of context of the burning years?
Well, I think research, if you're a hard science writer, science fiction writer like me, um, and there's very few women actually who write hard science. I could not find very many. I mean, I looked. It's mainly men, and they're mainly scientists. Asimov was a scientist. Stanislav Lem was a scientist. I don't think Clark was, but yes, research was very, very important. And so I really took a lot of time to research very extensively different forms of science, different fields, genetics, biology, not mathematics. I don't really understand the theories underneath them, but you can read theoretical science, and it's very interesting. And then I
Yes.
use books. Michael Talbot's Holographic Universe is a wonderful book, easy to understand, wonderful to read. Brian Greene writes on string theory, very easy to read. And then Hawkins on multiverses. David Bohm is harder. He's a physicist. He talks about time and how it's all one thing, that the past, the future, and the present are all together, and we access it through our minds, and our minds are the ones that construct time. So he's complicated but amazing. Carl Jung, his theories of the creative consciousness that we all tap into. But I don't want people to get put off, because I've done the research and I've done the work about turning it into dialogue or something fun or something silly. Research was very important.
Yes, 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 indeed. So, Miss Felicity, what are your short-term and long-term goals in writing?
Oh, in writing. Well, my short-term goal is I'm still writing a lot of blogs for Medium. It's a wonderful publication, and I advise people to go on it. It's got some great stuff. So I write short blogs for Medium. But I also need to do the marketing and public relations for these books. Now I've written them. So mainly it's writing and writing PR pieces or writing interesting articles that will put people into my books. I did write a memoir last year, so I'm working on that. I have an editor, and I am considering how I present it. And it was fun to write. And I would advise anyone to write a memoir, because you don't have to be a writer; you just do it. And it's really a fun thing to do. I continue to write poetry. And then in the long term, do I have another book in mind? Not right now, I don't. But my books sort of form very slowly over a few years. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see. So those are my goals, really, to have people read the series, and really to then activate change in their life, to do what's needed to make sure my grandchildren are safe, and their grandchildren are safe, and their children, and so on. That's my long-term goal. Yeah.
Good luck for your sure goals, Miss Felicity, and I hope more books to come. You are most welcome to come back to promote the second series of the Burning Years. So, what will be your advice for those aspiring writers out there?
My advice for aspiring writers is really, I think, you must pick up the pen and you must practice. Like any athlete that's really good at what they do, like anyone that's really good at what they do, you have to practice. So I would say you must write every day. It doesn't matter if it's good or bad. Just you have to write. I think depending on what you write, you have to read. You have to read in your genre. If it's poetry, read poetry. If it's short stories, read short stories, novels. So you must read. I would advise writers to get good feedback, good editorial feedback, to study again. How they need to write. Mostly, I would tell them be brave. Be brave. Don't because you do step out onto the stage, and you look around and there's no one else there. You're there, and your book's there, and you wrote it, and nobody else wrote it. And so you have to be very brave and be very proud of what you've done. So those, and I would say write like your life depends on it. That would be my advice.
That would be great, Miss Felicity, and stop procrastinating, people. If you have the passion to write, write, and share to the world. And don't care of what people say about you. Focus
Yes.
on your journey because this is your life on earth and you need to share the world what you got. So, Miss Felicity, can you please invite our listeners to support your books?
Yes, I would love to do that. I would really appreciate it if you bought my book. You can find it on Amazon. You can get it as a Kindle copy, or you can get it as a paperback or even hardcover. You can find it on Barnes and Noble. And also, I'm going to have an audio version on Apple Books coming out in December. So please read it, and then please, I hope very much you'll be interested in reading the next book, which is called Homo Deus, and which will be out in March of next year. And do visit my website called The Burning Years, squarespace.com. You'll find my website and some of the other ideas that I have as a writer, and a link to my book on Amazon, and a link to my book trailer.
Yes, people, I support Miss Felicity Harley because if you support her, more intriguing books, science fiction books to come. So, Miss Felicity, thank you for your time.
Well, thank you so much. You've been a great host, and I'm very honored to have been on your show. Thank you for everything you're doing for writers. It's so helpful.
Morning, people. See you soon.
See you. Bye.